The first time anyone called it Kwalat al-Jinn. The Fort of the Jinn was after the third man disappeared. Before that, it had another name, a Portuguese name that the locals never liked, and the sea never kept. By 1860, the old coastal fort on Oman's jagged shore was little more than a scar of stone on a wind-blasted cliff. Waves crashed against the rocks below, hurling salt up into the air like tiny knives. Gulls circled overhead, but they never landed on the fort's walls. The fishermen in the village of Alcara said the birds knew better. They said the fort listened. They said it watched. They said that when the wind was just right, you could hear it breathe. Most people laughed. Most people stayed away. But Captain Elias Rahman did not laugh. He had been sent by the Sultan himself, and turning back was not an option. Muscat, early 1860. The air inside the palace was heavy with incense and politics. Captain Elias Rahman knelt on one knee before Sayyid Thuwaini bin Sayyid, Sultan of Muscat and Oman. The ruler's eyes were sharp, tired, and calculating. There is unrest on the coast, the Sultan said quietly. Smugglers use the old fort near Alcara. British officers whisper that we cannot control our own shores. He paused. His fingers tapped the arm of his carved wooden chair. I will not be mocked in my own seas. Elias kept his eyes lowered. You will sail with a small detachment, the Sultan continued. You will reclaim the fort, inspect it, and establish a garrison. You will confirm to our friends that Oman's coasts are not abandoned. Elias swallowed. Yes, my Sultan. As he rose to leave, the old vizier, standing in the shadows, spoke in a low voice. Captain. Elias turned. The fort you are going to, the vizier said slowly. It was abandoned for a reason. Elias frowned. Because of the Portuguese? The vizier's eyes were dark and unreadable. Because even the Portuguese, he said, know when a place does not belong to men. The dhow creaked as it cut through the Arabian Sea. Elias stood at the bow, cloak whipping around him, eyes fixed on the distant line of cliffs. The village of Alcara came into view first, a scatter of mud brick houses. A small minaret, fishing boats pulled onto the shore. And above it, the fort, squat, angular, its walls stained by centuries of salt and wind. From a distance, it looked like any other Portuguese ruin along the coast. But as they drew closer, Elias felt something he could not name. A pressure, subtle at first, like the weight of someone's gaze between his shoulder blades. His lieutenant, Karim, stepped beside him. That place, Karim muttered, does not want us. Elias forced his tone to stay light. Places don't have wants, Karim. Karim did not answer. He only watched as their dhow approached the small cove beneath the cliff. A fisherman waited on the shore. He did not wave. He did not smile. He just watched. The fisherman's name was Rashid. His beard was graying, his eyes sun-darkened, and his hands calloused by nets and ropes. He spoke without preamble. "You are the Sultan's men." Elias nodded. "We've come to inspect the fort," he said. "Smugglers are using it." Rashid's gaze flicked up to the stone bulk looming over the cliff. "No smugglers here," he said. "Not anymore." Kareem snorted softly. "Then why does your village avoid it like a plague?" Rashid's jaw tightened. "We avoid it," he said, "because we like being alive." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Stories?" he asked. "Jinn, I suppose." Rashid looked him in the eye. "Stories are what stupid men tell to pass the time," he said quietly. "What we have are names we do not say at night." He bent down and traced something in the wet sand with his finger. A circle, lines crossing it. An old warding sign, older than the Sultan, older than the Portuguese, older than Islam. "My grandfather fished these waters," Rashid said. "He warned me, never sleep within those walls, never eat there, never pray there." Elias forced a smile. "We're soldiers, not children. We don't scare so easily." Rashid wiped the symbol away with his foot. "Everyone who said that," he replied, "is now part of the stone." The path up the cliff was steep and narrow. Wind clawed at their cloaks. Dust stung their eyes. Elias and his men, 30 soldiers in all, climbed in single file, muskets on their backs. At the top, the gate stood open. No hinges creaked. No birds perched on the battlements. Kareem whispered, "It feels as if it has been waiting." Elias stepped through first. Inside, the courtyard yawned empty. Old cannon lay rusting in place. Flagstones cracked. A dry well in the center gaped like a blackened mouth. But there were signs of life, too. Charcoal from recent fires. Rope. Empty crates. Smugglers had been here. But they had left. And they had left in a hurry. Elias knelt beside a fallen crate. A coin glinted in the dust. He picked it up. Portuguese, old, smoothed by fingers that hadn't touched it in a very long time. Yet it lay on top of fresh footprints. Footprints that led toward the inner keep and did not come back. They set up camp in the courtyard. Elias gave strict orders. No one explores alone. No one enters the lower levels. We secure the walls, then the chambers, then the storerooms. The men nodded. They built a small fire. Cooked rice and dried fish, prayed in a group, their voices echoing against the old stone. Night fell fast. The sea turned to black glass below. The stars wrapped around the fort like a silent audience. Elias took first watch. The fire burned low, casting long shadows across the courtyard. His men slept in small clusters, blankets wrapped tight. Wind hissed through the arrow slits. Elias walked the perimeter, boots crunching gravel. For a while, there was nothing but the sound of the sea. Then he heard it. A whisper, faint, almost drowned by the wind. He paused. The whisper came again, not in Arabic, not in Portuguese. something older. It seemed to slither along the stones. From the well, Elias slowly approached the dry well in the center. The whisper stopped. He looked down. Only darkness stared back. They lost the first soldier on the second night. His name was Haroun. He was young, too eager to prove himself. Elias had posted 2 men at each corner of the rooftop walls. The sea wind was fierce that night. Waves smashed relentlessly below. Near midnight, Karim came running to Elias's quarters. Haroun is gone. Elias grabbed his musket and followed him. At the western wall, the guard post was empty. Haroun's musket leaned against the stone. His cloak still hung from the hook. But Haroun himself was nowhere. He must have gone down, one of the men said. Elias shook his head. His boots are here. He pointed to the neatly placed boots beside the wall. Karim's voice was tight. No one climbs barefoot on this rock, Captain. Not in this cold. They searched the fort, courtyards, rooms, the gate. Nothing. Then, one of the men pointed downward. There, at the base of the cliff, where waves crashed into the rocks. Something pale floated briefly in the foam before being dragged under. Elias stared. It might have been a face, or it might have been nothing at all. The men grew restless. Around the fire the next evening, their voices were sharp and quick. "It's the smugglers," one said. "They took him." "No tracks," Karim replied. "No sounds, no struggle. Maybe he fell," another suggested. "Boots," Karim snapped. "Stop talking like fools." Elias watched them quietly. He knew fear when he saw it, not the fear of battle. Men could brace for that. This was different. This was the fear of something nameless. "Enough," Elias finally said. "We are soldiers of the Sultan. We will not be chased away by shadows and stories." Rashid the fisherman had come up with a basket of fresh fish. He stood just inside the gate, not crossing into the courtyard. He listened in silence, then spoke. "You should leave," he said simply. Elias turned to him. "We have a duty." Rashid's eyes slid to the dark well in the courtyard. "So did the last garrison," he murmured. "And the one before that." Elias frowned. "What last garrison?" Rashid looked at him grimly. "The one the Sultan never talks about," he said. "The one that never came back." The next day, Elias began a more thorough search. If there had truly been a previous garrison, unwritten, unspoken, then someone had left something behind. Records, notes, anything. In the commander's chamber, behind a loose stone. He found it. A leather-bound journal, the edges brittle. The ink faded, but readable. He flipped through the early entries, descriptions of the fort, weather, supply complaints. Then, midway through, the men complain of whispers at night. I have posted extra guards. The sound appears to come from the well. Next page. We sealed the lower stairs today. One of the men swore he heard someone breathing behind the door. No one was inside. Next. 3 men gone in 6 nights. No tracks. No blood. Only their weapons left behind. Elias felt his stomach tighten. At the bottom of the page, scrawled hastily, "It is not the smugglers. It is the stone." That night, Elias sat alone by the well. The men were under orders to stay away from it. They obeyed, but they couldn't stop glancing at it. The opening was not wide, but it was deep, very deep. Old forts often had such wells carved directly into the rock, reaching down to hidden veins of groundwater. This one had been dry for decades, or so it was said. Elias held a lantern over the edge. The light did not touch the bottom, just swallowed by black. He listened. For a while, nothing. Then, ever so faintly, his name. "Elias!" He froze. The voice was soft, broken by echoes. "Who's there?" he called. Silence. Then, louder now. Not one voice. Many. Layered whispers. "Elias, come down." His grip on the lantern tightened. Every instinct in him screamed to step back. So he did. But as he moved, the whispers hissed together. A single word, sharp, angry, coward. By the fourth day, the fort had taken another man. His name was Nasa. He had been cheerful, always quick with the joke, until they found his blanket carefully folded in the corner of his sleeping place. His prayer beads laid on top. His rifle resting against the wall. No sign of struggle, no footprints leaving the room. It was as if he had undressed for bed and then vanished into thin air. Elias gathered the men. "We will not turn on each other," he said. But their eyes had changed. Trust had thinned. In the dark, the fort's walls hugged them close. Too close. Something about the stone felt different now. Warmer. Like something had been added to it, or someone. Kareem came to Elias late that night. His face was slick with sweat. "I'm leaving," he said. Elias stared at him. "You are my lieutenant. You don't leave," Kareem swallowed. "I dreamed," he said. And it felt more real than this. Elias said nothing. Waiting. Kareem's voice trembled. "I was in the well," he whispered. "But it wasn't dry. It was full." "Full of what?" Elias asked. Kareem's hand shook. "Arms," he said, "pulling me down. And every hand had the same face." He looked up, eyes wide. Haroon's face. Elias closed his eyes briefly. "It's fear," he said softly. "The mind plays tricks." Kareem's answer was immediate. "Then why," he hissed, "could I feel their nails?" The next time Rashid climbed the path, Elias met him halfway. "Tell me," Elias said, "about the last garrison." Rashid sighed. He sat on a rock, looking out at the endless sea. "They came 10 years ago," he said. "Men of the Sultan, like you. Brave, proud." He picked at the calluses on his hand. "The first week, we heard them laughing from the fort. training, singing after evening prayers. He paused. The second week, we heard less. No more singing, just shouting. Doors slamming. One night, a scream. His voice lowered. Third week, nothing. No smoke from their fires, no lights. We went up to look. Elias's throat felt dry. What did you find? Rashid's eyes were old and tired. Boots, he said. Dozens of boots, neatly lined along the walls. That night, a storm rolled in. Lightning ripped the sky. Thunder shuddered through the stones. The men huddled in the inner rooms. Elias did not huddle. He stood by the well, lantern in one hand, rope in the other. He tied the rope around his waist. Kareem grabbed his arm. "Have you gone mad?" he demanded. "That thing wants you down there." Elias met his friend's eyes. "It wants all of us," he said quietly. "I need to know what it is." Kareem's grip tightened. "If you go alone, you will keep them from following," Elias cut in. "We are already under siege. I just want to see the face of the besieger." Without waiting for an answer, he fastened the rope to an old iron ring embedded in the courtyard stone. Then he climbed over the lip of the well and went down. The walls of the well were slick, cold. Elias descended slowly, lantern swinging. At first, there was only rough-cut stone. Then, lower, he saw markings, etchings, not Portuguese, older, curving symbols, swirls, eyes, dozens of eyes. They seemed to shift as the lantern passed. Watching, he kept going. The air grew thicker, not damp, not exactly, more crowded. Like walking into a room where many people had just been speaking, and all had gone silent at once. At last, his boots touched ground. The well widened here, a chamber. He moved the lantern in a slow circle. Bones, not scattered, arranged. Hands laid in a ring. Skulls stacked like bricks. Elias swallowed hard. From somewhere in the chamber, a voice whispered, "You came." Elias lifted the lantern high. No figure stood before him. No creature, no shadow, separate from the others. But he felt it. Everywhere. In the floor, the walls, the ceiling. As if the entire fort had bent its attention onto this one point. "You are not smugglers," Elias said. A soft vibration shivered through the stone. "Smugglers come and go. We stay." "Who are you?" Elias whispered. A pause. "Then we are what is left when fear has nowhere else to go." Images slid into his mind. Men praying, crying out, dying, their last breath sinking into stone. "The soldiers," Elias said softly. "The prisoners, the tortured, the forgotten." The walls pulsed. They built walls to keep us in. But walls are patient. We learn to move, to listen. Elias's throat burned. "You have no right," he said, voice shaking, to take the living? The answer was calm. The living come to us. They sleep in our mouth. They drink above our tongue. They whisper their fears into our teeth. A low, almost amused hum. We only finish what they start. Elias stood in the heart of the fort, alone, but surrounded by more than he could see. "What do you want?" he asked. The answer came like a breath over his neck. "To be remembered." He blinked. "For that," he said, "you kill?" The stone vibrated. Death is not distance here. They are not gone, they are us. Images stabbed at him. Harun, Nasser, men he'd trained with, laughing, drilling, now soaked into the walls like water into sand. Elias clenched his jaw. "You have your dead," he said. "You will not have my men." A pause. Then, almost gently, "Then take them away." He frowned. "What?" "Leave this mouth, leave this hill. Never sleep in our shadow again. Take your names with you." The stone around him shuddered. "If you stay, you stay forever." Elias climbed, hand over hand, lungs burning. Kareem hauled him the last few feet. "What happened?" Kareem demanded. Elias lay on his back in the courtyard, staring at the sky. "That thing," Kareem said, eyes wild. "Did you see it?" Elias sat up slowly. "I saw enough." He gathered the men. Their faces were pale, anxious, hollow-eyed from nights half-slept and filled with whispers. "We're leaving," Elias announced. A murmur rippled through them. "Leaving?" one asked. "What about the Sultan's orders?" "He ordered us to secure the coast," Elias said. "The threat here is not one we can shoot." Kareem opened his mouth as if to argue, then closed it. He had seen the boots. He had heard the well. He said nothing. Rashid watched from the gate. When the column of soldiers filed past him, packs hastily loaded, eyes avoiding the well, he breathed out softly. "Maybe you will live," he murmured. Elias paused beside him. "You knew," he said, "about the things below." Rashid shrugged. "I knew enough to stay away," he replied. "You were the one who had to know more." Weeks later, in Muscat, Elias stood again before the Sultan. "You abandoned your post," the ruler said. "No, my Sultan," Elias replied quietly. "I refused to feed more men to a grave that has learned to speak." The court muttered. The vizier's eyes were hooded. "What proof do you bring us?" the Sultan asked. "Of such a claim? We cannot rule by fishermen's stories." Elias reached into his cloak. He placed the old journal from the previous garrison at the Sultan's feet. Pages open to the last entries. He said nothing. The Sultan read in silence. His jaw tightened. At last he spoke. "The fort will be sealed," he said. "No garrison, no smugglers, no one." He looked at Elias. You will never speak of what you heard there. Elias met his gaze. With respect, my Sultan, he said softly. It doesn't matter if I speak of it. He paused. It will still be listening. Years passed. Empires shifted. Trade routes moved. Flags changed. But Kalat al-Jinn remained. The villagers of Al-Kara taught their children not to climb the cliff. Fishermen made the sign of protection when their boats drifted too close. Sailors swore that on moonless nights they could see faint lights in the fort's windows. Not torches, not fires, something slower, pulsing, like a heartbeat. Some say that if you stand on the shore and listen carefully, when the waves pull back from the rocks, you can hear voices in the exposed stone. Hundreds of them, praying, cursing, begging. They say that the fort is not haunted by Jinn at all. They say it is haunted by memories that refuse to die. And somewhere, deep beneath the courtyard, in the bone-lined chamber at the bottom of the dry well, the fortress still waits. Listens, whispers, "Come down. We remember you.